And sound check. Damn, I feel drunk already.
It's true. It is a little later. We're a little bit more drunk.
What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the Team Morale Podcast, where I do our three favorite things: talk a little bit of booze, a little bit of beer, and a whole lot of basketball. E and the tall guy back at it again. And it's award season. We're halfway through the NBA season. We're going to revisit what we talked about earlier, which is our awards predictions. We're going to talk where we went wrong, where we think we went right. We're only halfway through, so we got a long way to go. But Mitch, we've got a lot to get to today.
Oh, yeah. It's mid-season award time. We just saw the All-Star game. Happy that we got to have that through this crazy season. But now we are going to talk about who do we think are leading in the award categories, or who do we like best in the award categories.
Absolutely. And we're going to talk who we think should win, who we have leading right now. We're going to revisit our old picks, which will be kind of fun. See where we went wrong earlier in the beginnings of the podcast before the season even started. But before we get into that, let's visit this All-Star game real quick, just for a brief moment. Fun to have, but all in all, kind of a dud.
I don't know if I totally agree with that. I think that the three-point contest was fun, and you had Steph winning on the very last shot. I think that the skills contest was exactly what the skills contest is every year, which is
not worth watching.
Slightly boring. I think the dunk contest was very underwhelming. Very underwhelming, and it was definitely not what, they rushed through it. They didn't have the best kind of guys out there, so it wasn't going to be the best dunk contest, and they definitely rushed through it way too much. And then the All-Star game, outside of the fact that I felt like I was just watching a highlight tape of the best players, which was on Team LeBron, and then Team Durant might as well have been the Washington Generals out there.
I mean, for 3 quarters, it was close. They lost by 1, 3 times.
Yeah, but they were down 20 going into the fourth quarter.
Yes. Well, the third quarter is where it got out of hand, but the first 2 quarters they only lost by 1 point.
Yes, but they did lose every single quarter, and I don't
they
know.
Swept it. The NBA needs to revisit this and somehow find a way to not make it so that one team is just stacked.
I think
when you have Giannis, LeBron, who barely even played, and Curry and Dame on the same team, it's just not fair.
Well, the biggest problem was Kevin Durant drafting bad, and then also losing Embiid, which was really his big pickup. Because Durant himself didn't play. He drafted Kyrie first, which allowed LeBron to have Steph Curry and Giannis. And then he drafted Harden, which is, Harden's a perfect pick for that time, but then that allowed Dame to go to Team LeBron. And Team LeBron's team, up and down, as soon as it was drafted, I was like, well, yeah, that team is way better than the other team. Is going to try harder at the very least.
Yeah, but if you look back at last year's, there were memes about how poorly Giannis drafted his team. There were a ton of memes about how, you look at Giannis' team, that team is terrible.
It's true.
Compared to Team LeBron. And at least that year it was competitive. And I chalk it up to guys like Lowry, who, try 100% of the time, doesn't matter when he is. But it's just one of those things where, they need to find a way to not, so that it's not so stacked every time. Because last year we got lucky that it was a good game. Yeah. Because the teams were still stacked in Team LeBron's favor.
Yeah, and I don't even know if it was we were talking with Michael in our last podcast about this, and his argument was you need players to buy in. And I don't know if players weren't bought in as much this year, as much as it just kind of fell apart in the third quarter, and then by the time the fourth quarter started, they were already down 20 and had such a hole, and then it's hard, they're not going to give their 110% best to come back by 20 points. The game was already decided by then. It's almost like the players kind of need to let the other team back in.
I agree.
Come fourth quarter, none of us really care if you win by 20 points.
Team Durant tried to play defense at the end of the third, beginning of the fourth. It just was too little, too late in a game where, also Team Durant just got dominated inside. Mm-hmm. Gobert just kind of cooked them. They were missing Embiid 100%, but it's just one of those things where they were just outmatched from the beginning, and everyone knew it. And yeah, they were playing around, having fun, but it was one of those things where everyone knew who was going to win, and it was just, in my opinion, kind of boring. It was kind of a letdown, in my opinion. I was going into it, I didn't have great expectations, but it definitely didn't meet what I thought it was going to be.
I went into it with medium expectations, and I felt like it was a medium All-Star game. Like, I've seen worse. I've seen much better. I think I've seen worse dunk contests. I've seen much better dunk contests. I've seen better three-point contests. I've seen worse three-point. It's just like, for me, it was very in the middle. I'm happy that they did it. I'm happy that like we got to see it again. It wasn't nearly as exciting as what we were promised or what we thought we were getting coming out of last year's All-Star game. But still, to me, it was also one of the most watched television programs so far this year.
Yeah, no, I agree.
So it was a good thing for the NBA to do it, TV wise, ratings wise, popularity wise. And we did have the weird COVID tracing with Embiid and Simmons. They didn't get to play. But outside of that, everyone remained healthy and is going back to their teams. We're going to resume the regular season coming tomorrow.
I'm left with the same opinion I had at the beginning, which was the product wasn't what it should be given the way that they're doing it, which is to make it more competitive, and it wasn't worth having. I'm left at the end, which I don't think I'm the alone in that opinion.
That's fair.
I do think that after seeing the product, I was like, meh. It was watchable, but it didn't do justice to the greatness that was 2 years ago now, and it didn't do justice to the format that I think was a big part of it.
And that's totally fair. I think that you're going to find people in both camps. I'm personally am happy that they did it. For me, it was almost like a sense of normalcy to have an all-star game and it looked fairly normal. To me, one of the biggest atrocities of the entire all-star game was the jerseys. I hated those jerseys.
Those jerseys were disgusting. Again, I think the whole thing was just not worth doing.
Well, so you and me will disagree in that. I think that some people are in your camp. I think some people are in my camp. I think you're a little split on both sides. Maybe I'm on the lesser side, but I think that it was a good thing to have the All-Star game. Nobody came out sick or with COVID. We got to see all the best players play. It was fun. It was like, regardless of like it being a close game. The players had fun for sure. The players had fun, and I had a good time watching. It's like, obviously, I'm a Dame fan. I got to have a good time watching Dame and Steph play together on the same team. Giannis doing his thing. Kyrie and Harden doing their thing. Like, I had a fun time watching it. I'm glad they did it, and now let's move on with the regular season.
Yeah, I guess that's fair. I think the All-Star break was needed, but I don't necessarily think that the product was... Because last year it set things up to just have everything be so competitive, and the only thing that was semi-competitive was the three-point contest, which was awesome. I mean, I was actually on my feet cheering for Conley and Steph, and I was just like, everyone make everything. That was dope. But then, I was ready. I was amped up. I was ready to go for the All-Star game. And yeah, the first two quarters I couldn't care less because no one cares less. You just kind of wait for the last quarter, and it was over by halftime.
I'll tell you what, I was on my feet when Zion missed four straight dunks. I was on my feet just like howling in laughter. Like, me and the couple guys that I was watching, I was like, dude, he's not going to smoke this one. And then he smoked the next one. He smoked the next one. I was like, oh my Lord.
All
but
right.
Yeah.
Well, we're heavy already. We didn't plan to talk about this, but I thought it was worth mentioning. What are we drinking tonight?
We are drinking the Red River Texas Bourbon Whiskey, which is finished in Pinot Noir casks, which is very interesting. Which
you can kind of taste.
Yes.
The aftertaste, you definitely get like red wine.
I really thought that I tasted it quite a lot. I mean, it's right on the label, and so you kind of know what you're looking for. But I thought that I tasted like that grape, like that wine flavor.
And we'll get into the taste in a little bit. But let's do some backstory here. So we'll visit. Wow, as I almost knocked my mic over. we are 100% sober when we started this pod, ladies and gentlemen.
We definitely were not out hanging out with friends before this pod.
That being said, we will go into the taste later.
Yes. So this was originally created in 2011 by Western Sun Distillery, and they actually had their distillery right next to DFW Airport. This is another Texas whiskey, as a lot of the ones that we have, the ones that are in our local liquor stores here. It's another Texas brand, and they were bought out by a bigger company. They moved down to Pilot Point, Texas, and they weren't originally like a whiskey distillery. They had some spiced rums. They had a vodka that they created, a lot of different types of alcohols, and then they created this Red River whiskey, and it became one of their better sellers, one of their more critically acclaimed whiskeys. And the thing that it's right there on the bottle. One of the things that's super unique about this is that once it's done with the distilling process, instead of putting it in your normal oak barrel, they put it in a barrel that's already had Pinot Noir inside of it.
So they empty out the wine and then use the same barrel.
Use those same barrels that had the wine in it, and then they put their whiskey in it, and then let the whiskey like sit and marinate in that extra little flavor. And they found that it actually had like a very unique taste to it, which I was a little skeptical of at first, but I think you really kind of hit it when you first sip it.
I love the idea of like, whose idea was this? Or like, were they out of barrels one day and some guys will like, I mean, I guess this barrel is better than no barrel. Was some guy like, let's get creative? I'd love to know the thought process behind it. I'm not sure if we ever will, but it's one of those things where like, man, like some guys like accidentally put it in the wrong barrel and it came like, oh, this
turned out pretty good.
Or like, hey man, we're out of barrels. What do you want me to do? He's like, throw out the wine. We don't need the wine. Just dump that, throw this in there. We're good.
Yeah, no, they don't really discuss it. So the article that I'm reading about, if you want to go read about it, it's off of 31 Whiskey, which makes reviews and writes articles about different types of whiskeys. And this one is a particularly Texas-oriented kind of article. So that's why they ran into this one. They reached out to the creators. They couldn't get a hold of them. But it's a very interesting article. Goes over the entire history of like the Red River whiskey and their distiller and like the entire story of it. So it's very fascinating. I would recommend that you read it because we can only get to so much right now.
Yeah, absolutely. We are already crunched for time.
We are.
As always, and I know people have mentioned this, we should ramble less and talk about what we're going to talk about more, but we've already rambled.
I'm a rambler. Okay?
The horse has left the stables at this point. We're already just at the mercy of the drunkenness that we already are. Let's get into our mid-seasons awards.
Let's do it.
And we're going to follow the same kind of path that we did earlier in the year when we were kind of picking our preseasons awards. Mm-hmm. And so our first one was Defensive Player of the Year, DPOY. We're going to revisit our old picks, which is going to be fun. So Mitch and I both had the same person at the beginning of the year, which was Bam Adebayo.
Who was the popular pick at the time?
Which was the popular pick at the beginning of the year. That being said, I think neither of us have Bam Adebayo for mid-season DPOY. Mitch, who you got?
So my guy is the current leader in shots blocked per game, and that is the center out of Indiana, Miles Turner. He is currently not the favorite to win this year. Right now, the favorite is Gobert because he's,
as always,
defensive anchor on the best team, and he also is notoriously one of the best defenders in the league. He's won it a couple times already. My argument for Miles Turner, though, is he is averaging over 3 blocks a game.
Which is ridiculous.
It is, what is it exactly? It is 3.4 blocks per game.
There was a good chunk of the year where he was averaging almost 5 too.
Mm-hmm.
It's gone down in the last couple of weeks, but there was probably the first month to 2 months of the season where he was averaging close to 5 blocks a game, which is just unheard of numbers.
Yeah. The only people to average like 3 blocks a game since 2010 is either Serge Ibaka, Hassan Whiteside, and now Miles Turner. And I think that Miles Turner is playing such great defense and is like literally the entire anchor to that entire team. He's averaging 3.5 blocks per game. He needs to be getting a little bit more recognition. Gobert has more name recognition. His team is playing better.
Household name, for sure.
He's a household name, so I totally understand that. But my guy in my heart, I think that it should be Miles Turner.
I mean, it's not a bad pick. And again, going with a big man for DPOY is not a bad decision. I do think he's hurt by that lack of house name, especially with the Jazz playing as well as they are. Gobert is just in the spotlight a lot just because his team has got the best record in the NBA. They're outperforming all these expectations. They're playing really well. So I do think that's a tough fight against Gobert just because their games are so similar. Why would you take like Gobert light, Mm-hmm. Even though he's putting up numbers that are similar to Gobert, like name recognition wise, people recognition wise, in terms of voting wise, he's basically Gobert light.
Yeah, and look, that's totally fair. You can think of him as a Gobert light because he like has less name brand, but I think that he is having just as big, if not more, of a defensive influence on his team than what Gobert is.
Don't get me wrong, I love myself a good light beer. Given the regular beer and the light beer, I'm going to take the light beer. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying the average voter is going to not take Gobert light.
Yes, and my guess My guess is that Turner continues to keep up this form, continues to stay over 3 blocks per game, and gives himself a really good chance. Again, this is not necessarily who I think is going to win, but this is who I like most and who I think should win.
Absolutely. And along the same road, I have another, not necessarily a dark horse, because he's getting a lot of recognition for his defensive abilities this year, and he's playing on a much better team than the Indiana Pacers, but I almost spilled it there. I have Ben Simmons from the Philadelphia 76ers as my DPOY for the half-season mark. His stats aren't great. He's averaging 1.6 steals and 0.7 blocks per game, but his on-ball defense and his defensive ability, the way he impacts the game, the way he gets deflections, all that stuff, like, he just impacts the game in such a crazy way on the defensive end.
And it should be noted that Ben Simmons is the number 2 odds-on favorite. Behind it goes Gobert, Simmons, and then Miles Turner as your top 3 in Vegas for odds to win Defensive Player of the Year this year.
He does have, again, the thing going for him is he's now in a household name. He's, been a high draft pick. He's on the best team in the East, or right around the best team in the East. He's just, playing really well. I've seen him firsthand. The ability that he has to take away the number 1 option on opposing teams is ridiculous.
Yeah.
You put him on like a Kawhi Leonard. You put him on like a Luka Doncic. If you have a small forward that you get your offensive production, if you run your offense through a small forward, Ben Simmons on that guy, you better find a backup plan.
Honestly, Ben Simmons, he straight up like guards your best perimeter offensive player no matter what the team is. Like when he played the Blazers, he was the guy that was locking Dame down, and he was locking Dame down. I remember watching a game with them against the Warriors, and he was like locking Steph down. Like, he's the guy that you put on Kawhi. He's the guy that you put on LeBron. He's the guy that you put on Dame. He's the guy that you put on Luka. Like, he is the guy that like you put on to shut down pretty much any perimeter player in the entire NBA. He's that quick and big.
He's the Darrelle Revis. He follows the number 1 receiver across the field. Doesn't matter where he goes. You line him up in the slot, in the backfield. Doesn't matter. Darrelle Revis is erasing you.
Yes.
And he's the eraser. He reminds me a lot of Kawhi Leonard 4 years ago, where like Kawhi is still a great defender, but like back before Kawhi became Kawhi the Claw, like he was just like hey, you want to have a good game? You're not with Kawhi on you.
Yeah.
Better luck next time. You better hope your second best player has a great game, because your number 1 option isn't scoring tonight.
Yeah. So I think that Simmons is one of those guys that like his eyeball test says that he should be a Defensive Player of the Year when his stats don't necessarily say that.
Yeah.
Maybe his advanced stats explain a little bit more how good he is at keeping a guy in front of him, keeping a guy from scoring at the rim, keeping a guy scoring from the perimeter. That being said, like his straight up just like steals and block stats, which is what most people look at, really isn't that impressive, which is what I think is going to keep him from winning. I think that at the end of the year, neither of our guys win.
I think it's still Gobert.
I think Gobert ends up being the guy winning, but I like both of our picks as well as guys that really should be talked about more.
Which is, again, going back to our original picks at the beginning of the year, because we both have Bam, and Bam's not really in the discussion this year with the way the Heat are playing.
Yeah.
Let's revisit our next category, which is Coach of the Year. Do you remember who you have for Coach of the Year? At the beginning of the podcast, I don't remember what episode it was.
I'm actually gonna look at it.
Wait, don't look. Take a guess. Oh, you already looked.
I looked.
Okay.
I cheated. So I stand by it. It's not a bad pick. I had Brad Stevens,
which now is a tough pick, just the way the Celtics are playing.
Yeah, it's unfortunate. The Celtics have been one of the bigger disappointments in the entire NBA, and Brad Stevens certainly isn't being looked at for a Coach of the Year.
He's not on the hot seat, but he's definitely in some warm water.
No, I think that the Celtics think of themselves as like, oh, we have a good coach and we have a good young core, but we need to find the pieces around it. Mm-hmm. So
I'd agree.
Stevens was not the guy.
Nope.
But
I had Monty Williams for the Suns, who like
it's a good pick actually.
I feel I don't have him on my list right now, but I do think that it's not far off and not out of the realm of possibilities to think that Monty Williams could win Coach of the Year. Who I have winning Coach of the Year, as I see you Googling something, so I'm gonna keep talking.
No, keep going, you're good.
I have Doc Rivers from the Philadelphia 76ers. I'm sticking on the 76ers train. Doc Rivers really just taking a meh team in the East last year who was like kind of underperforming and taking them and getting the most out of guys like Joel Embiid. Like Joel Embiid was a guy who could barely stay healthy and was great when he played, but you had to limit his fouls. You had to limit his offensive touches because he was erratic and shot too many difficult, like ridiculous shots when he just like go in the paint and just eat big man. And Doc is getting the best out of his like MVP candidate, who he has been his whole career. And Doc's getting the most out of him. He took a guy like Ben Simmons, where he's like, hey, you don't need to be the best offensive player. Go win DPOY and go pass the ball. Like, and he gets the best out of him. He's surrounded himself with shooters. Like, he's got a lot of shooters around this team. He's really taking his team and putting them on a trajectory where it's not out of the realm that they could win the finals this year.
No, not at all. I mean, when you're the number one team record-wise in the East going into the All-Star break, you are formidable. You need to, like, people need to realize that you are, like, a real team that need to be, like, taken seriously. And
especially when there's an arms race in the East to, like, who can go get a big man to try to stop Joel Embiid.
Yes.
Like, teams like the Celtics, teams like the Nets are, like, literally scrambling to try to find big men that can try to, like, help them win a playoff series, because everyone's gearing up for the arms race that is the playoff series against the 76ers.
Yes.
Everyone is basically just, like, bulking up to be like, all right, if we're going to win, we have to go through Philly. And if we have to go through Philly, we have to have the right pieces to do it.
Yeah. And Brooklyn was a really fascinating team that you brought up, because right now it's gearing up, looking like it's going to be a 76ers Brooklyn Nets Eastern Conference Finals.
Which is weird because we're riding off the Bucks.
Yeah, and we're just kind of riding off the Bucks because they've been slightly underperforming and they haven't looked as good as they have in years past. But yeah, Embiid is the guy that it's like is really scaring you. So I've always thought that there was some sort of like management issues when it came to Philadelphia. They brought in Daryl Morey, they brought in Doc Rivers. They already had good talent, but they had to like figure out what are the other pieces going to be like. They got Danny Green, they got Seth Curry, and Doc is like the perfect team to like bring them all together. So I like that. Mm-hmm. My guy though is Quinn Snyder,
which is a great pick again.
So again, we're going to go to the betting odds, which I always think is the best way to gear who is winning right now.
And when you say the betting odds, who's setting these betting?
This is the Vegas.
This is Vegas.
This is the Vegas betting odds,
which is just
from Vegas Insider.
Which is good to just put out there.
Yes.
Like we're using Vegas, we're not using random betting odds.
Right now, Quinn Snyder is winning, and he is a minus 150. And then it goes Monty Williams and then Doc Rivers. So
Monty Williams is number 2?
No, Monty Williams is number 2.
I was literally about to ask who was going to be where Monty Williams was on that list. And I'm pretty proud of my preseason self.
Yeah.
Let's go, Ethan.
Brad Stevens is top 10. Quinn Snyder, he is the favorite to win right now, and I think he should be number one team in the West out of nowhere. I mean, people gave up on the Jazz. People going into last season were like, oh, the Jazz could be sleeper, like championship, like Western Conference final bid kind of team.
Going into last season. And then they basically flunked it.
Yeah, they totally disappointed. Lost in the first round, blew a 3-1 lead. And then this year came out just roaring, playing like the team everyone thought they could be. They're not necessarily like star-studded, but they just like got really good, solid, like minimum B type players on your team that are like throughout the entire rotation. And they really started to figure out this year. And I think that a huge part of that is the leadership and coaching of Quinn Snyder. I think that he has done more with less than guys like Doc Rivers. That's why I think Monty Williams at number 2 makes a ton of sense. And like he also is going to have a really good chance at winning this because he has done more with less.
I agree. The Jazz kind of remind me of that Hawks team a few years ago.
Oh yeah,
that were
the
just
Budenholzer team.
Yeah, that were just really good out of nowhere. And they didn't play any bad basketball players, but they didn't play anyone that was like just like wow good. Yeah. Like they just played a bunch of like good, solid, like a couple of great guys, but then everyone on that rotation was good, and that coach really just got the best out of those players. And that's what Quinn Snyder's doing this year, to where like you have a bunch of guys that are like good, and then you have a couple of great guys, but like no one is like just like that superstarness, to where like it's really the coaching and the system that's really getting the most out of these players.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. I mean, it really depends on how the second half of the season turns out as to who the winner of Coach of the Year is going to end up being. I have faith in the Jazz. I think that they're going to, at the very minimum, be a good regular season team, even if they flame out in the playoffs at some point, and that Quinn Snyder, in my opinion, should win and probably will win.
I'd agree. I think at least you can't get this far into the season, have the best record, and then, I mean, barring an implosion by the Jazz, I think that it's Quinn Snyder's award to lose. Let's hit one more before we take a break. Okay. Let's just keep going down the list that we did at the beginning of the year. Most improved player. So let's just go down who we have. I picked DeAndre Ayton to be my most improved player, which isn't looking too great. And you had Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, who isn't actually looking bad.
He's not looking bad. Hold on, I'm bringing up the odds again.
Okay.
My favorite way of
but
judging
who do you have for your most improved player this year?
I went between a couple of guys, and I think that there's a lot of good bids.
This one's the most, I think, open award.
Yes.
There's a lot of people that are in the running for this award. I think you can go with probably 5 or 6 guys and get away with being like, oh, all right, that's not a bad pick.
I totally agree. And there's a lot of guys that you could go, off the top of my head, I like guys like Julius Randle. I like guys like Christian Wood. Jaylen Brown is having a great year. Zach LaVine has got his first All-Star game this year. Like Chris Boucher has played really well this year. I'm going to stick with what I went with before, which is Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. I really like, right now he is 5th or 6th in the, hold on. I can count. He is 6th in the betting odds, and there are guys like LaVine, Brown, Wood, Randall, and Grant all above him, and I totally get that. But I am loving what I'm seeing out of Shai Gilgeous this year, which is he's become like the leader of his team. He's still got some older vets like Horford and George Hill, but he is like the stats guy this year. He is the go-to guy, and he is actually showing this year that he has been playing really well. I mean, last year he averaged 19 points. This year he upped it to 23 points a game. Last year he averaged 3 assists a game. This year he's averaging 6 assists a game. Like, he has really stepped up his game overall, and I think that he deserves a little bit more credit in this field than what other people are getting.
Yeah, I would agree. I mean, he really, in my opinion, got hurt by not being picked an All-Star. Mm-hmm. Because I think the big thing about this most improved player award is those guys that make that jump from like good player to all-star level player. And like, don't get me wrong, he had the stats to be an all-star. In the East, he's probably an all-star.
He probably is. I mean, I think that he's right next to Zach LaVine in that.
I think I'd take him over Zach LaVine.
I personally think they would too.
That being said, he's in the West where like he's not even on the radar just because the West is so stacked in talent, especially in like the guard level. There are so many good guards in the West. I mean, you think about it. I mean, Devin Booker was a sub. He got hurt. Mike Conley was a sub, right?
We didn't even see DeRozan cut.
I was about to say DeRozan could have gone. And like those people are all, in my opinion, better than Shai Gilgeous.
Yes.
But that doesn't diminish what he is and how good he is. Because like, again, he's an all-star level type of player. Anyone who averages 20 points per game on a team is a good player. Anyone who averages 20 points per game on the usage that he is. Name someone else on their team that can kind of get their own bucket.
Yeah.
You can't.
Exactly.
So, like, the whole offense is 9 times out of 10, there are 4 guys standing there and Shai Gilgeous with the ball being like, hey, man, you want to do something?
A lot of the time,
that'd be cool.
They're looking at either SGA or Lou Dort at the end of a game and being like, I hope you make a contested shot.
Please make a contested shot.
That's kind of what we're going to be. So, I had SGA at the beginning of the season. And I am going to stick with him. There's a bunch of guys that I really love. And I think there's a lot of quality candidates this year.
There's a lot of players who upped their game this year.
Oh, totally.
There's a lot of rising talent. The NBA is so young. Mm-hmm. This might be the youngest the NBA has been. And by youngest, I mean like the most young talent.
Yeah.
Where like every team has a young guy where you look and be like, man, that guy could be our best player.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Like every team. Like, even, like, the older teams, you look around and you're like, man, like, I mean, he might not be our best player, but he's a good fit to be our... I mean, Emmanuel Quickley on the Knicks just playing really well. Gary Trent Jr. on the Blazers playing really... I mean, there's so many good young players.
Absolutely.
And speaking of the Knicks, that's where my guy comes in. I have Julius Randle for my most improved player.
Love it.
I mean, he is a guy who went from good player to all-star, which is what you need to win this award. I mean, Brandon Ingram did it last year. Upped his points per game from 19.5 to 23. Upped his assists a game from 3 to 5.5. Upped his rebounds a game from 9.5 to 11. The man is averaging 23, 5.5, and 11 while shooting, let's see here, 40% from 3 on 4.5 attempts a game from your center.
Dude, I mean,
averaging 48% from the field
and
averaging 36.7, so almost 37 minutes a game.
You know what the biggest thing to me is that he is the leader, heart, soul, and physical ability of the New York Knicks, who are currently the 4 seed.
Who are good.
They're good. They're being led by Julius Randle. Like, he's not just an empty stats guy on a bad team. Like, he is like
who people thought he was.
Yes,
everyone
big
thought he was like
on a good team now.
Yeah, everyone thought. Jesus, as I almost kill my mic again. I'm gonna move this back a little bit. Where was I?
Julius Randle. Glass?
I do. Julius Randle, a guy who's kind of written off, especially after he left New Orleans, as a guy who was like, okay, New Orleans was his final chance. He just doesn't have it. Mm-hmm. Like, he just doesn't have it.
Yeah. And another guy really quickly that I think Ladies Man Tom would be mad if I didn't mention the guy who's actually the odds-on favorite to win Most Improved Player of the Year, which is Jeremy Grant. Going from a role player with the Denver Nuggets, everyone really saw him as just like he's decent 3-and-D.
A good defender.
Fairly athletic, good defender. Like, he'll hit some open shots. And to a guy that's like the entire team was centered around as averaging well over 20 points a game and is like actually like borderline all-star.
I agree. My knock on him is he's the definition of empty stats.
Yes, he is. Totally. He's empty calories guy.
Which is fine. But, I mean, when you come to these awards, like Most Improved, yes, you improved yourself, but also, like, you give anyone enough shots, they'll put up numbers.
Mm-hmm. Totally agree.
Yeah. All right. So that's halfway through our awards list.
Yep.
We're 3 out of the 6. Let's revisit this Red River. Let's talk about how it tastes like wine, which is kind of weird, and get into that a little bit.
It's hard to describe like exactly how it tastes like wine.
It tastes dry.
Yes.
Like
that's a great way.
It tastes like those
like
of you that have
wine,
gone
like a Pinot Noir.
Those of you who have gone wine tasting, you know the difference between like dry wine and not dry wine. Mm-hmm. This tastes like dry whiskey. Yes. Is what it tastes like.
Yeah, and like I feel like I get a ton of that taste in like when you like swallow, like in the back of my throat, is very much like that's definitely like the wine flavor.
Absolutely.
And it's still whiskey. Like, don't get me wrong.
But it goes down like wine. The taste isn't wine, but the way it feels going into your mouth. And it's kind of hard to explain unless you're drinking it. I recommend everyone goes and gets a bottle and kind of like tries it for yourself, because it's not bad. Like, it tastes good. But it's definitely an interesting sensation where you swallow whiskey and it feels like you're drinking red wine.
I'd also say incredibly smooth.
Oh, super smooth.
I would agree. I don't get
much
of the harshness that we've had on some of the other ones. I don't get much bite on it.
Which is weird, because you have bite. There's bite there, especially when you put it on your tongue and you kind of like feel it.
It's still a whiskey straight.
There's some spiciness to it.
Yeah.
But when you swallow, it's just like, oh. It's kind of smooth. It goes down like wine.
Yeah, I totally agree. I am so far a big fan of this. I have never had this before drinking it here on the podcast, and I'm kind of going through it. Like I'm drinking it really fast.
We're unpacking it as we go, but it's definitely something that, again, like my best way to explain it is it tastes dry.
Yeah,
it tastes like a dry whiskey.
It does. It tastes like a drier Pinot Noir. And if you like wines, Pinot's somewhere in the middle of your reds. It's not like a cab where it's like ripping the enamel off your teeth and like really hard to swallow. But it's also not as sweet as a Merlot. And I personally really can like taste like that medium dryness that comes with a Pinot Noir.
Yeah, it's. I'm going to go out on a limb and say it's the most like deep tasting whiskey we've had on the podcast.
Yeah.
To where you take a sip and there is probably the most to unpack.
There's probably a lot. If we were to just sit here and just like try to like get different flavors,
we could
probably do a lot on this. Yeah.
We could do a whole podcast just on unpacking what's in this.
Yeah. So made by Western Sun Distiller. Here out of Texas, called Red River Texas Bourbon Whiskey, finished with Pinot Noir casks. Really, right there on the front.
Just
not super expensive. Letters. It's like $35 a bottle. Good stuff.
I would agree.
Good stuff. You should go give it a try.
If you are a wine person and you're interested in trying whiskey,
Give it a go.
This is one worth trying because it's the perfect bridge because it tastes like wine, but it also tastes like whiskey.
Totally agree.
Which is, it's a whirlwind. It's a ride, but it's also like a good ride.
Yes. I am very much enjoying it. Good stuff. You guys go give it a try.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's jump back in here. We took a brief break. It was a quick break, but it was a necessary one. Let's talk Sixth Man of the Year. And I'm looking at our list of what we came out with a couple of months ago. You had Montrezl Harrell for Sixth Man of the Year. You had him repeating in
I did.
In LA.
I thought that he was going to be better than what he has been.
He's kind of been a disappointment. I had Jordan Clarkson, who
Are you feeling good about that?
All about. And I'm going to take this away for him a second because I have Jordan Clarkson for my halfway point award winner. It's his award to lose. The man is just a walking bucket off the bench for a great Jazz team.
Trying to get some stats right now.
This is when you talk. I left it for you, and this is when you. I served it up and on a silver platter, and you just swallowed.
I thought that you were. I did. Well, I did swallow. I was drinking the whiskey. It's good stuff. Yeah. So he is far and away.
All right, I got him. Averaging 17.9 points per game, averaging 4 rebounds and 2.5 assists. I mean, it's just crazy numbers. 37% from 3 on 8 attempts a game. 8.5 attempts. He shoots almost 9 threes a game and hits 37% from 3, which is wild. 44% from the field. He shoots basically 15 shots a game, and almost 9 of them are threes. The guy's just chucking it, but he's efficiently chucking it.
He's on the perfect team for him. I mean, being on the Utah Jazz, like they're like a team's team, but they need someone that can go and get their own bucket outside of Donovan Mitchell, and that's exactly what Jordan Clarkson steps in. He's like, I'm happy to just chuck, and he's chucking and he's making it. Right now, he's minus 400, and the next best guy is second place, and that's Eric Gordon with plus 900.
I mean,
that's
again,
a huge gap in Vegas odds. Right now, it's pretty much like it would be fairly startling, barring like an injury, if Jordan Clarkson did not win this award.
Yeah, he's having a career year. He's having a career year efficiency-wise. I mean, just crazy efficiency on the volume that he's shooting. I mean, he's shooting 15 shots a game, and the only other time he shot even close to this was when he got traded to Cleveland, and that was only like half the year. And yes, he averaged around 17 points that year, close to his 18, but again, not even close to the efficiency that he's doing it.
Yeah.
He has been given the keys, and he's taking the keys and just going on a joyride, and he's doing great things with it.
Yeah. I'm with you. Jordan Clarkson is also my pick right now. It's just like he's going to win Sixth Man of the Year.
Barring something crazy.
Barring an injury, barring Donovan Mitchell going down and he has to start a bunch of games and becomes like disqualified for it. Some other guys to keep your eyes on right now: Eric Gordon is second, Chris Boucher, Terrence Ross, Montrezl Harrell, and Tyrese Halliburton. I would not be surprised to see Tyrese Halliburton's name shoot up just because he's a rookie and he's playing really well off the bench. Montrezl Harrell with the Lakers, especially with AD out, his stats are probably going to start jumping. But again, I just think it would be pretty wild if Jordan Clarkson did not win this year. It's his award to lose.
I'm giving myself a pat on the back.
I'll give you one. Pat. You go.
I called it, and I'm proud of myself for calling it. And Jordan Clarkson, you're not listening to this, but if you are, I believed in you from the beginning. And by the beginning, I mean like a couple months ago, which isn't the beginning, but I was here
about 30 games
for you.
Ago.
Well, exactly 36 games ago, let me tell you. And he started none of them, and I'm proud of him for it. Keep cooking off the bench, guy. You're doing great.
Yeah, congratulations, Jordan. Playing great.
Yeah, he's definitely doing exactly what they brought him there to do. All right, we've got one where, again, I feel great about my pick. I don't think you feel great about yours. Rookie of the Year, Roy, as some people call it, the Rookie of the Year, ROY.
The Brandon Roy Award.
I have LaMelo Ball winning. You don't have LaMelo Ball winning. I'm going to look up who you have winning
Okay, no, I'll just tell you. So when the season started, I went with Killian Hayes, who was the high draft pick for the Detroit Pistons. He was known to be like an ISO scorer, good ball handling, like could go get himself a bucket kind of guy. And I thought that the Pistons were ready to give the keys to a young guy and like just kind of start rebuilding. Clearly, that was not what they were doing.
Picked the wrong young guy. Jeremy Grant was said young guy.
Well, Jeremy Grant's not even that young.
I'm just saying they picked him.
They did. They ran with the Jeremy Grant thing and the Blake Griffin thing up until recently. R.I.P. Blake Griffin
in Detroit. Enjoy
Brooklyn. Enjoy winning. But I thought that they were ready to give the keys to a young guy. I thought Killian Hayes was going to get a bunch of reps, go out there and like maybe play bad, but like get a bunch of big stats. And that's not at all what the situation was. So that's why I went with Killian Hayes. Not at all how it's been. He's not even like playing for them. He's so bad.
I was about to say, I mean, in your defense, he hasn't played. He's only played in 7 games.
Yeah, he's a garbage minutes guy.
He's averaging 4.6 points and 3.6 assists in 21 minutes per game for 7 games. So, I mean, he's shooting 27% from the field.
It's not great. It's not great. It's tough to shoot a good efficiency when you're not out there a whole bunch. And I understand it. Like maybe he hasn't been that good overall in practice and training camp and he's not worth playing. Maybe they're saving him. I have no idea. Maybe he needs a couple years to develop into the NBA game after being in Europe. There's a lot of factors there, but Killian Hayes has not been the guy. But no. I do have a guy.
You know who has been the guy?
Tyrese Halliburton?
My guy. LaMelo Ball. Out here just straight up booling. Averaging 15.8 points, 6.3 assists, and 6 rebounds while shooting 80% from the line, 37% from 3 on 5 attempts a game, and 45% from the field. Just cooking them and being the franchise cornerstone that I knew he was when they drafted him. LaMelo Ball, patting myself on the back again because I called this one.
You and everyone else. Look, LaMelo Ball was the popular guy going into the draft.
Well, there's a reason he was a popular guy going into the draft.
Because he was on a reality show his entire life.
Because he's a baller.
And his dad is LeVar Ball. And
because he's a baller.
Look, he's good. He obviously is good. I've never even been doubting that he's a good basketball player this whole time. I left off 1.6
steals per game.
Oh, wow. He knows how to play defense. Congrats. My thing with LaMelo is obviously he's going to be good. Obviously he's going to be an all-star. Obviously he's going to be the leader of the Hornets and be on the Hornets for a long time. But I question whether his attitude and his leadership and his mentality is going to be a plus or a minus, because he kind of takes everything as a joke, and it's shown that it's rubbed some of the guys, him and Biyombo were fighting at the end of a game. It's shown it's rubbing people the wrong way. I think that LaMelo wins the Rookie of the Year. I think he does.
He should win the Rookie of the Year.
I don't know if he should.
What do you mean he's
I don't
winning?
know if he should.
He's winning. He's leading rookies in points, assists, rebounds, steals, every major category he's leading them in. He's the first.
Give me Tyrese Halliburton.
He's up there because the only reason I know this is because I follow the Mavs, and he broke some Luka rookie records, which is just wild because Luka was the first to break some records since Magic.
So I think that LaMelo will win. I think that LaMelo should win.
There it is. That's what I wanted. That's all I wanted to hear, ladies and gentlemen.
I think that as of right now, LaMelo should win. He has been given a bunch of leash. He's been playing well. I do think that people should look at what Tyrese Halliburton is doing too.
This isn't a knock on Tyrese Halliburton.
No. So what I'm going to go stat by stat. You got LaMelo's stats there?
Yes, I have them.
Okay, so what's his points per game?
15.8.
All right, so Halliburton is 13.2.
Okay.
What's his steals per game?
1.6.
Halliburton's 1.4. What's his assists per game?
6.3.
He's at 5.4. What is his field goal percentage?
44.9. So
he's at 49%. What's his 3-point percentage?
37.8.
He's at 43%.
Well, what's the attempts?
5 per game. Hold on. Yeah, 5.5 per game.
LaMelo's 5.5, so around the same.
So My thing with Halliburton is he hasn't nearly been given the same kind of like leash and keys to the car as LaMelo has with the Hornets. And honestly, I think Borrego has done a great job with LaMelo so far this year in like giving him leash, but also like holding him back and not letting him like get too much.
Which is weird because the Hornets are on the LaMelo's on the better team.
Yes,
the Kings are bad. The Hornets
are bad. They're
the
like
Hornets
Western
are better.
Conference bad.
The Hornets are better than the Kings.
I don't know about that.
The Hornets are better than the Kings.
I'm not totally sure about that. I'm telling you right now that if the Kings were an Eastern Conference team, they potentially would be in the playoffs. Where the Hornets right now are in that group
of
the
NJB team down the street might be in the playoffs in the East.
Yes, and so would the Kings. So are the Kings that much worse than the Hornets? You and I want to
field the team. We might be able to make the playoffs in the East.
I can't definitively tell you that. So in raw stats, LaMelo is better. In efficiency, Halliburton's been better. They are very not similar. Halliburton's a little more straightforward kind of player, a little bit more SGA type, not great creativity wise, like good handles, not great handles. Where LaMelo is super flashy, great handles. Like everything he does seems like a top 10 play. So he looks better.
As a Luka fan,
stats, but I think that people need to look at Halliburton more.
As a Luka fan, LaMelo reminds me a lot of rookie year Luka.
Yeah, I mean, I get it. I totally get it.
Like, it's just everything he does is flashy. Everything he does is very European style, which is awesome. His jump shot, mechanics-wise, needs some work, but it goes in, so I'm not going to fight it.
Mm-hmm.
I'm here. I'm on the LaMelo bandwagon. Choo-choo. Here we go. Chugging along, leaving you in the dust.
Look.
On the way to ROY.
I am happy to change my opinion about these kind of things. I changed my opinion about Lonzo, and if LaMelo can prove to be a pretty chill guy, pretty normal guy, like not a dick, then I will jump on the LaMelo bandwagon. But I am waiting a little bit before I do.
That's fair. You're not wrong to do so. I just think you're also wrong to do so. To be so late.
Go Halliburton.
We've got one more award. It's probably the biggest one, the granddaddy. I need myself another glass of whiskey before we hit this one, though.
One last one?
Yeah, one last one.
All right.
But
talk, I'll fill.
Okay. We have MVP, most valuable player, going into the last one to talk about here as I grab my glass. Both of us had Luka Doncic for this one, and
I don't think he's winning it.
even as a biased Mavs fan, I don't think he's winning. He's still sixth in like odds, but he
still has wild stats, but it hurts when your team's not playing very well.
Which is hilarious because his team's 2 games above 500 in the 8th seed in the West,
and they've won 8 out of the last 10,
9 of their last 11.
Oh wow.
That being said, he's not winning it. Let's be honest. I think we both have big men going into this one.
We do.
But let's revisit our old stats. So if you guys remember from the earlier episodes, we both had our picks and then we both had dark horses. And so me and Mitch both picked Luka to win it. Our dark horses, mine was Steph Curry and Jokic, who is my pick to win it right now. And then you had Dame, which is also not a bad pick, but I don't think that's who you have.
No. I currently have Joel Embiid. Best player on the best team so far. I mean, it's hard to say because like the Jazz might be the best team, but
the Jazz are the Hawks. They don't have a best
superstar player.
Yes.
Yes. Where the Sixers are the best team in the East, and they have a very clear-cut, defined best player, and that is Joel Embiid, and he absolutely deserves it. The dude is cooking this year, dude. I have never seen him play so well from the perimeter all the way to the inside. Like, he's dominating the inside like he never has before, all while still being able to shoot threes, having that little Hakeem, like, step back. Like, his footwork has been amazing. His defense has been amazing. He's been using his size and his body better than he ever has before, and the team is succeeding because of it. I have Joel Embiid as the guy I think should win the MVP, and then I'm going to be biased. I'm going to throw Dame's name out there as a guy that I think is a dark horse that I love, and I hope that the narrative sticks with him and he like continues, and the Blazers continue to play well. But unless they're a top 2 or 3 seed, they don't even have a chance, where the Sixers are a top 1 seed right now, and that's why I think Embiid is the guy that deserves it.
They could fall off to like a 4 seed and Embiid would still be in it. I haven't done any research to back this up, but I don't know if there's a player in NBA history who has cooked from the perimeter and cooked from the inside like Embiid has. I mean, the man is shooting 41% from three.
That is wild. For a big guy like that?
On 3 attempts a game. So not crazy.
Honestly, that's
volume,
exactly what you want.
But 3 attempts a game from your setter, 41%, while cooking 55% from 2-point range. He shoots step backs. He shoots threes. If you get him on the block, it's over.
Oh, yeah.
He shoots floaters. He will bully ball you. He has finesse. He has the hook. Like, there's no way that there's no stopping this guy on offense.
To me, this right here, what I'm going to say is the stat of why I think that he's the guy. He averaged 23 points a game last year. He averaged 27 points a game the year before that when the Sixers were really good, made to the conference finals. This year, 30 points a game. That is what makes you an MVP. 30 points per game, 11 rebounds a game, doing a little bit of everything, shooting threes, doing just like you're talking about. He's doing a little bit of everything. He's playing good defense. He is dominating down low. He's shooting well from outside. This is absolutely an MVP campaign that he's putting up, and I think he deserves it.
You want to know something crazy?
Tell me.
He's close to a 50-40-90 year.
Yeah.
He's shooting 52% from the field, 41.6, so almost 42% from three, and 86% from the line.
Wow.
He is on pace to be your best player, shooting how many shots a game? A lot. He is shooting 18 shots a game.
Wow.
And almost averaging 50-40-90.
Wow. Dude, he's playing out of his mind, and I think that there's a reason why he's the number one guy in Vegas odds. Who do you have?
Absolutely. I have one Nikola Jokic, the other big man. Who is another guy who just is wreaking havoc in the NBA.
Currently third. And
he's currently third.
In Vegas odds, they have LeBron in second, which fair enough.
But his stats are just as impressive as Embiid's. His team has struggled a little bit. The Nuggets have been a little bit inconsistent this year, but a guy who hasn't been inconsistent is Jokic. 27 points per game, 8.6 assists per game, and 11 rebounds per game from your center.
Yeah.
Which is wild.
Dude.
Averaging, 88% from the line, 42% from three on 4 attempts per game. So basically what Embiid does, but a little better. And then almost 57% from the field.
He's
another 50-40-90 guy.
Jokic is wildly efficient. Everything he does on the court, it just helps your team. He's not going to be amazing at defense, but you're always just going to be okay with that because he does everything.
He's averaging
offense.
Almost 2 steals a game.
Oh, wow.
He's been much more engaged this year. He's averaging 1.6 steals a game this year, which is just, 1.6 and almost, half a block, so not crazy, but
he's never been a guy.
He's not going to block shots, but
he's still
a guy
a big
who gets
presence
deflections.
In the paint. Yeah,
exactly. A guy who's 7 feet tall, and at least this year he's engaged. This is the most steals he's averaged. It's kind of wild. He's averaged over a steal a game all but 1 year of his career.
Yeah,
But this year he's averaging 1.6, which is a lot more than average.
I think his stats are more impressive than Joel Embiid's stats, but I think Joel Embiid is on the better team. Let's say second half of the season, the Sixers fall and they go down to the 3 or 4 seed. Let's say the Nuggets rise and they go up to the 2 or 3 seed. I think then Jokic wins it over Embiid. But up until then, I think that it's going to be Embiid's to lose because of the situation the Sixers are in. And this is where it comes into the MVP is not just an individual stat, it's also a team effort.
I agree. It's going to come down to LeBron's obviously in the mix.
Yeah,
as
LeBron
he always is.
Yeah, especially with
I think
AD
he's the favorite
now.
right now.
He's the second favorite.
He's the second favorite.
It goes Embiid, LeBron, and then Jokic.
Okay, but I do think that it's going to come down to if a big man's going to win it, whether it's Embiid or Jokic, it's going to come down to whose team's better.
Yep.
And it's kind of slighted towards Embiid because he could be the 3 seed and have a worse record than the Nuggets, and the Nuggets could be a 6 seed.
It's true.
just the way that the West and East is.
It's very true. I mean, the Sixers, if they played in the West, who's to say that they're not the exact same spot that the Nuggets are in? And if the Nuggets play in the East, who's to say that they're not in the exact same spot? But the way the NBA is designed right now is the way that it's going to be. And the Sixers are the number 1 seed, and that is why Embiid would win. It's the same argument I would make with LeBron is like the 3 or 4 seed right now.
Yeah.
Like with the Lakers, like they're not going to give LeBron an MVP if he's not the 1 seed. And that's just kind of the way it is. So there's a lot still up in the air. There's a lot of season left. There's a lot of basketball to be played, and these can totally flip. That's why they're the midseason awards.
Yeah. But it's fun to talk about. It's fun to discuss. It's fun to see how close yet far we were at the beginning of the year. But that being said, just fun to revisit our old takes and come up with some new ones based on what we've seen so far this year.
Absolutely. So let's I can't wait to watch the rest of the season, the back half, the playoffs. Hopefully they're coming soon. I cannot wait. I'm so excited for basketball to keep going, and I'm glad that we had the little all-star break, but let's push on through and get through this weird COVID year, because I hear that they're supposed to be starting from like normal next year. Yeah, hopefully.
It's going to be fun. It's going to be crazy. There's a lot of games left to be played, a lot of basketball left to be decided. Shout out to Red River for joining us tonight. Whiskey with wine, which is always a fun mix. Try it out if you're a wine lover and you want to try whiskey. Try it out if you're a whiskey lover and you want to try something new. It's a fun whiskey. It's worth having. It's a interesting one for sure, and it's just fun to have, man.
Yeah, it's not breaking the bank. It's very smooth for people who don't like harsh whiskeys. It's got a lot of flavor for expert whiskey drinkers that like to dissect the flavors. I think it's a little bit for everybody.
Yeah, absolutely. Always fun to be back here with you guys. We'll be back again next week with another fire podcast. This one was fun as always. Cheers, brother.
Cheers.